We're so fond of saying that the TLSBA is the new Masba. It's the Masba that we all dreamed of together. We continue to take forth that vision that we all had when we were part of that tremendous organization, trying to bring to fruition what it is that Masba past presidents dreamed of for Masba before the old Masba became Sbmle, or school board members for Latino equity.
Bienvenidos and welcome to Equity en Acción, a podcast of the Texas Latino School Boards Association, where we champion educational equity for the 2.9 million Latino students in our Texas public schools. Learn more and support our growing scholarship program at tlsba.org. And now, here's our Executive Director and host, Dr. Jamie Mathias.
Hello, I am Dr. Jamie Mathias, Executive Director of the Texas Latino School Boards Association. Welcome to this inaugural episode of Equity en Acción, because equity begins with listening. In this podcast, let's unpack and talk about Masba, the Mexican American School Boards Association. Then we'll talk about the TLSBA, the Texas Latino School Boards Association. And finally, we'll talk about Sbmle, the School Board Members for Latino Equity. Masba, the Mexican American School Boards Association, was birthed in 1970. You can read more about Masba in a history that we compiled in 2000 called Viva la Lucha, Personal Reflections on the 50th Anniversary of the Mexican American School Boards Association, available on Amazon. The context of the birth of Masba was the Chicano movement and the Chicano rights marches that were happening throughout Texas and throughout the United States. Also, the United Farm Worker Movement and various other labor organizations were organizing. We saw the advocacy of Cesar Chavez. So it was a real surge in a time of really lifting up and highlighting the voices of our siblings in the Mexican American community. It was a pleasure to serve as Masba's executive director from 2017 to 2021. We celebrated Masba's 50th anniversary in 2000, its golden jubilee. When I came to Masba in 2017, I inherited an organization of 62 member districts. That was in 2017. Within 2 years, we had grown Masba 130% to 142 districts in 3 states. During that time in 2019, we were proud to see Masba reach its highest ever levels of membership, sponsorships, and scholarships. With respect to scholarships, for instance, when I came to the organization, it was sharing 5 scholarships per year with students here in our Texas public schools. We grew that Masba scholarship program to serve over 180 students in our Texas public schools. It was very gratifying to serve as the executive director of the Mexican American School Boards Association. In 2020, 1 month before the pandemic began, we celebrated Masba's 50th anniversary with a tremendous, memorable celebration that we called Mas, the proceedings of which are captured in this book, which is available on Amazon as well. Even during the pandemic, Masba was a source of pride. During the pandemic, we brought together superintendents and school board members, and we were trying to convene weekly discussions to be able to build community and to navigate the unknowns of Texas public education in a changed landscape. That resulted in our 2021 book, Pandemic Public School Perspectives, also available on Amazon. That was actually our 5th book as an organization in 3.5 years. Perhaps the book for which we were most known is a book called Seats at the Table, School Board Members' Perspectives on Race and Racism, which won Masba a spot on the stage of the 2021 TASB convention with a keynote on school board members' perspectives on race and racism. I am so extremely proud of all that we did together for Masba, the Mexican American School Boards Association. And I just want to pause and give a shout out to the godfather, to Luis Q. Reyes III, a longtime president of the Seguin ISD Board of Trustees. It was Luis, the godfather, who helped to rebirth Masba in the early 1990s. He served as president and then as executive director of Masba, and he held the Masba board's hand in 2017 and assured them that he and I, working together, could take Masba to new heights, which we were proud to do. In 2021, however, Masba's then president, who would later resign from his local school board in disgrace, seized on the opportunity to expel Masba's non-Latino executive director. A bit of context. I had suggested that we collaborate in Masba with other researchers and organizations on a project to bring a spotlight to Texas's failure to provide an equitable education to Latinx students. The fact that Masba was not on board with such a project is telling. The research of that collaboration resulted in 2 new books, also available on Amazon: The Lies of Texas, The Continued Damage Inflicted by the Texas Education Miracle on Disadvantaged Students, and also a thick work called The State of Texas's Failure to Provide an Equitable Education to Latinx Students. But it's just as well that we parted ways in 2021. Masba believed that we could create meaningful change for our students and for our public schools through legislative relief. History does not bear this out. It was frankly no surprise that Masba would use the goodwill and the growth of that organization to hire a state legislator as my successor in Masba. At the TLSBA, however, we believe that meaningful change for our students and for our public schools will only be achieved through judicial relief, which is why we're dedicated here at the TLSBA to bringing together research and resources for educational leaders in Texas, research and resources that might one day be used to secure meaningful judicial relief for our students and our Texas public schools. Since 2021, Masba, to the chagrin of its past presidents, has charted an entirely new course for itself, becoming unrecognizable to those who knew and loved Masba for so many years. It would rebrand itself as Sbmle, School Board Members for Latino Equity. We'll come back to that in a moment. First, let's talk about the TLSBA, the Texas Latino School Boards Association. The TLSBA was birthed in 2021 by me and Godfather to better serve the 2.9 million Latinx students in our Texas public schools. We love the name TLSBA, which more closely identifies us with our sister organizations in other states, the Arizona Latino School Boards Association and the California Latino School Boards Association. TLSBA then is one of 3 LSBAs, or Latino School Boards Associations, in the U.S. today, and as you can imagine, we dream of more. Whereas Masba has retrenched and shrunken its scholarship program from 180 plus scholarships in 2021 to only 6 scholarships in 2024, half of which went to students in the Texas House District of its new executive director. The TLSBA, on the other hand, has provided scholarships to nearly 370 students in over 160 districts. Let me say that again. The TLSBA has recognized nearly 370 TLSBA scholars, graduates of our Texas public schools in over 160 public school districts. The TLSBA is on the leading edge of pushing for UIL approval of baile folklorico, as you'll hear in the next episode of this podcast. We've also published 2 books that we mentioned, The Lies of Texas and Texas's Failure to Provide an Equitable Education to Latinx Students. We've hosted events like Mariachi Bajo las Estrellas, Mariachi Under the Stars at the TASB conference. We've also hosted Legends, a celebration of Latinx education advocacy with music by Latinx Grammy winner Roger Velasquez and the Latin Legends. That was at TASB's Summer Leadership Institute in San Antonio. And here at the TLSBA, we look forward to the joys and challenges ahead of serving the 2.9 million Latinx students in our Texas public schools in an ever-changing landscape, which is increasingly hostile to our Texas public schools and to public education, which is the bedrock of our democracy. So now that brings us to Sbmle, the School Board Members for Latino Equity. Parting is such sweet sorrow, but during the past 5 years, the TLSBA and the Masba that we once knew and loved have taken 2 very different paths. Masba has rebranded itself now as Sbmle, or School Board Members for Latino Equity. You can look at their website, which now focuses on a student art contest, a district awards program, and a fellowship program for graduate students. Don't get me wrong, art is a great thing, and we want to encourage the creativity of our students, but how is an art contest closing gaps and bringing equity to our Texas public schools? A district's award program. It's great to recognize districts and best practices, but how is it anything more than merely PR, and how is it advancing Sbmle's vision of creating an equitable public education system? And finally, a fellowship program for graduate students. Need I say more? According to the Sbmle website, Sbmle has gone through a period of contraction and now has only 67 member districts. While the good news is that's 5 more than the organization had in 2017, the less than good news is that's 75 districts less than what the Masba that we all knew and loved had in 2019. 75 districts left, now 67 member districts in Sbmle. Sbmle, in plain English, is 47% of what Masba was just 5 years ago. It's also contracted in its number of sponsors. It went from 63 sponsors in 2019 to only 26 sponsors now on the Sbmle website today, which in plain English means that Sbmle has lost 60% of Masba sponsors. One of the things, though, that Masba past presidents most lament about Sbmle's deviation from all that Masba once held dear. One particular point of contention, for instance, is the fact that in Masba's bylaws, it always prohibited a trustee, a school board member, for serving for more than 1 year as Masba's president. Are you sitting down for this? Sbmle's current president has now served in that position for nearly 3.5 years, an idea that was anathema to the Masba that we all knew and loved. Several Masba past presidents are in disbelief. Some even say that Sbmle has fallen into authoritarianism or is now being run by a dictator. On a more personal note, I'll share a story. I mentored with a local nonprofit here in Austin for over 8 years until they decided to honor the Sbmle president as part of the Fab Five here in Austin. And I certainly understand tokenism and the need to make sure that various groups of people are represented, but I could not stand idly by as they honored a person perceived to be a dictator or an authoritarian within an organization that so many of us love. So as you can imagine, I no longer volunteer for that mentorship organization, but I do continue to mentor with other organizations as a result. So we continue to look at the bright side. Others, though, wonder about the depth of the leadership on the Sbmle bench and when, if ever, that organization will see a transition in leadership after 3.5 years under the presidency of a single trustee. But that's a conversation for another day. In fairness to Sbmle, School Board Members for Equity, for Latino Equity, will reach out to them and invite them to come onto this podcast so that we can hear directly from them about where Sbmle, the School Board Members for Latino Equity, are today. Another point of contention, it was the hiring of a state representative as executive director of Sbmle. We're grateful that we built Masba to the point that a state representative would even consider being my successor, considering where Masba was just 5, 6, 7 years ago. But having a state rep as your executive director comes at a price. Just the salary alone to have a state representative lead an organization. The rumor is that Sbmle pays that state representative more than 3 times what it was able to offer me in 2017. That's not sour milk. That's simply noting how it is that precious resources are being diverted away from students and scholarships and once cherished programs simply into the salary of a single person in an organization. On a more positive note, though, perhaps the current fellowship program of Sbmle is a crafty way for a person to enjoy additional interns for him or herself. Fortunately for Sbmle, School Board Members for Latino Equity, the Masba that we once knew and loved, relies on the support of TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards, which gives Sbmle over $100,000 a year in cash, we understand, plus all sorts of other benefits and services. There is a criticism throughout Texas about how it is that this state organization is providing the salary of a state representative who once served on the Public Education Committee at a time when she was named executive director of Masba or Sbmle, but that's a fascinating story that we'll save for the future. You probably wonder, how much does the TLSBA, the Texas Latino School Boards Association, receive from TASB? Nothing, which allows us here at the TLSBA to be an independent voice, not beholden to TASB. And so we're able now to advocate for the 2.9 million Latinx students in our Texas public schools without having to worry about TASB dialing us and asking us to dial down our advocacy for equity in our Texas public schools. And within a larger context of the independent media that's now arising with all sorts of podcasters who are not beholden to legacy media, maybe that is a very good thing. I want to say this, though, as one who has a spot in his heart for TASB. I served on the TASB board for over 5 years at a time when TASB hired its first ever division director for equity, diversity, and inclusion, a position that has since been eliminated from the organization. But at the same time, we don't want to pretend that our relationship here at the TLSBA has been a rose garden with TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards, or with Sbmle, School Board Members for Latino Equity. We are aware of the fact that we are perceived as a threat. For those of us who knew and loved the mission of Masba and who are continuing to carry that forward, we recognize the perceived threat that we are. But we also continue to esteem the mission of the old Masba that we knew and loved, from which Sbmle has deviated. And so we are going to continue adelante. For the sake of transparency, I would want to note that our last communication from our friends at Sbmle was actually a cease and desist order. Interestingly enough, here at the Texas Latino School Boards Association, we saw Masba or Sbmle as a sister organization in the fight for equity for our students and our Texas public schools, and we even dared to suggest that in writing, that Masba or Sbmle was a sister organization or is a sister organization of the Texas Latino School Boards Association. Needless to say, Masba, or now Sbmle, responded by insisting that we never again refer to Masba or Sbmle as a sister organization. And so, to be clear, the TLSBA and Sbmle are not, at least at present, sister organizations. Like the big media conglomerates, though, Masba is lawyered up, and so we'll keep you apprised of any further developments in response to our truth-telling here at the TLSBA. Stay tuned. And so now I hope you can understand and better appreciate why we're so fond of saying that the TLSBA is the new Masba. It's the Masba that we all dreamed of together. We continue to take forth that vision that we all had when we were part of that tremendous organization, trying to bring to fruition what it is that Masba past presidents dreamed of for Masba before the old Masba became Sbmle, or School Board Members for Latino Equity. I just want to end with a word of gratitude. I'm just so extremely grateful to all of you who serve the 2.9 million Latinx students in our Texas public schools. Grateful to all the school districts that recognize the great good that we are doing here at the Texas Latino School Boards Association, and how it is that those school districts have stepped up to support us and have been true heroes for equity and for our Latinx students. We are grateful to you and for your support. If you are not yet a member, become a member of the Texas Latino School Boards Association today at tlsba.org. You can become a district member or an individual member, and becoming a sponsor also is a way to help us to further our mission and to grow our scholarship program for so many graduates of our Texas public schools. So spread the word to all people of goodwill who might have a spot in their heart for the 2.9 million Latinx students in our Texas public schools. Let them know of the Texas Latino School Boards Association, the TLSBA. Thanks for joining us for this inaugural episode of Equity en Acción. See you next time, because equity begins with listening.
Gracias. Thank you for listening to Equity en Acción, a podcast of the Texas Latino School Boards Association. If you believe in equitable public education for all Texas students, join us and support scholarships for the graduates of our Texas public schools at tlsba.org. Hasta la próxima.